So His Grace Bhima Prabhu joined ISKCON in early 70s in United States, and he joined as a full-time missionary, as a brahmachari in the United States in the ISKCON temple. From the very beginning days, Prabhuji was involved in Sankirtan, book distribution. Later on, Prabhuji came to India in the 80s, and last 4 decades he is staying in India. Prabhuji went around all the states of India to do book distribution, and he is one of the main inspiration for our team. Like when I was in Juhu, when I was mostly staying in Juhu, Prabhuji would always ask me, so when are you going in the bus? And he would always ask about our book distribution activities. To inspire us, come with us for book distribution on the beach, on various places, to give inspiration to us. So last 4 decades, Prabhuji is staying in India and taking care of various responsibilities in ISKCON as a bureau member, trustee of ISKCON, as a trustee of the BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, as well as general secretaries for the ISKCON temples in Mumbai and Vrindavan. So like this, Prabhuji traveled around India for book distribution. I was saying in a Sankirtan bus, just like some of us have traveled. So Prabhuji has also traveled for many years in Sankirtan bus in the various parts of India and has distributed a lot of books. So he was today mentioning just now in the car that in 1975, he came to Hyderabad for the first time when Srila Prabhupada came here and was doing the Pandal program. And there was a Harinam in Char Minar. So Prabhuji was also there in that Harinam, 1975. We can just imagine. Harinam in Char Minar in those days, and a lot of book distribution and Sankirtan. So Prabhuji is very much inspires devotees for book distribution for Sankirtan. And every month I send emails to Prabhuji regarding our book distribution report. And he gives us a very encouraging reply and inspires us for whatever very humbly small thing we are doing, but because of Prabhuji's inspiration, we are going on. So it's our great fortune today that Prabhuji has come to ISKCON, Attapur, to bless us and guide us further in Krishna consciousness. So once again, I express my thanks on behalf of all devotees for visiting to ISKCON Attapur. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
His Grace Bhima Prabhu ki jai.
Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurnaditam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalum Pangum Langayate Gadi Yad Kripa Tadaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramanandamaravam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. Actually, when we came here, that time the temple in Abbots was under construction. Just started the construction. And Radha, Madan Mohan were living in a temporary building, temporary place. So when we were in Charminar doing Harinam, Sankirtan, all of a sudden 2 bulls came and they were fighting. So all the people became terrified because they were knocking over the hot gadis, and that's the first time I'd ever seen, bulls roaming the streets and fighting in the streets. So India was a very different experience for someone who's coming from the West. Things worked in a very different way. But I remember in the Pandal program, Srila Prabhupada was giving very long lectures. And at the end of the lectures, Prabhupada would ask, they'd ask questions. They'd write it down on a piece of paper. And one devotee named Achyutananda. Tell him to turn up the bass, turn down the treble. A lot of feedback. So Achyutananda would read the questions, and then Prabhupada would give the answers. And he gave about 5 nights or 6 nights lectures there. And one night, the people were asking questions. And he said, these questions are all nonsense, just chant Hare Krishna. So devotees did a big kirtan. Well, one night, someone asked a question. Can you show some mystic powers? That was the question they asked Prabhupada. Can you show some mystic powers? Prabhupada explained that a devotee of the Lord is not interested in mystic powers. These yogis, they are interested to have some power to be able to expand themselves or do so many other mystic things. But the devotees of the Lord, they're not interested in mystic powers. They want to serve Krishna. Whatever ability they have, they want to use it to serve Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada was explaining like that. And, and he said, but if you want to see mystic powers, see my mystic power. I've turned all these malechas into brahmanas. And all the devotees went, Haribo! So that's the real mystic thing, is to be able to give up sinful activities, to be able to chant the holy name of Krishna, have some attraction for the holy name of Krishna, to realize what is important in life, what is real life. People have this misconception that their fruitive activities is life. But that is a very futile conception of reality. Because what is the benefit of their fruitive activities? They may get some money and engage in sense gratification, right? Only to do the same thing again, to have to take birth again to go to school. Does everybody remember when they were in the 5th grade, the 5th standard, 6th standard? You want to do that again? Metric exam. Not fun, right? But that's material life. Puna punas charvita charananam. Again and again, chewing the same old thing. So what's real life? Real life is service to Krishna, rendering service to Krishna and Krishna's devotees. This is the real life. Because by that activity, one can enter into the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, there's activities. Some people think the spiritual world is just being one with everything. But what is that one with everything? Who wants to be one with everything? Right? The Mayavadis, they talk about being one with everything. Oneness, Brahman, light. Who wants to just be light? So actually, the Mayavadis, by their preaching, they give rise to sense gratification. Because when you tell people you can become light, oneness, people think, well, at least here in the material world, I can, play cricket and I have my family, and why would I want to just become light, oneness? So this Mayavadi preaching actually gives rise to sense gratification. And because they have a poor fund of knowledge, their knowledge is not complete, they can't explain that there's activities in the spiritual world, right? There's activities in the spiritual world. Krishna's there with his cowherd boyfriends, with his mother and father, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai, and there's activities. Just like we have activities here, there are activities there, but all the activities in the spiritual world are with Krishna and centered around Krishna. So this is the real life, perfection of life. And this life, so many wonderful activities that Srila Prabhupada has given us. Just like kirtan. Devotees were chanting and dancing so nicely in the kirtan. The non-devotees, they have no such relishment, right? They never jump up and down and chant and dance, right? Only if they go to the wedding and they drink half a peg of whiskey, then they can dance. Otherwise, no. But devotees can spontaneously chant and dance and experience happiness. Because Krishna is within the heart of every living entity as the Paramatma. And when the Paramatma sees that we're rendering devotional service, trying to please his devotee, then from within our hearts we become enlivened. We become enlightened. We become detached from this so-called happiness that's here in the material world. So this is what Srila Prabhupada has given us, and if we try to share that with others, it's not like in the material world. In the material world, if you have something and you share with others, you have less, whatever it is. If I have 2 apples and I give 1 apple, then I have less apples, right? But the spiritual world is not like that. If we have something spiritual, like taste for Krishna's name, or attraction to Krishna's form, or Krishna's upadesh, his philosophy, or his pastimes, and I share those with others, I share my realizations with others about these things, then my attraction, my taste, my realization increases. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamritasvadanam. It's like an ocean. Devotional service is just like an ocean, ever increasing. So this is the real life. This is the life that has meaning. This is the life that has purpose, rendering service to Krishna, chanting Krishna's holy name, and spreading the chanting of the holy name. This will give us eternal life. This is an eternal occupation. The occupation of non-devotees is temporary. One life they're maybe a doctor, next life they're a rickshaw driver, right? But the devotee of the Lord, life after life, their occupation is serving Krishna. And there's never any loss for serving Krishna. Even if one somehow or another becomes diverted from the path, wherever one left off, whatever advancement one has made, when we take it up again, we'll start right there. Right? That's why when some devotees come to devotional service, they seem to accelerate very nicely. That's because they did some devotional service in their last life. So this life is a great opportunity to render service to Krishna. Without that, well, you can live your life, but it won't have much meaning to it. The things that you do in material life, even ordinary animals are doing the same thing. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. One person I approached on Sankirtan one time, I asked, well, what do you think the purpose of life is? It was a husband and wife. So the husband was thinking, and the wife said, it's for procreation. But think about it. Is that what life is for? I mean, even the cats and dogs procreate, don't they? Pigs also procreate. And if you think about it, they do a better job than human beings. When human beings procreate, they might have 1 or 2 children. But pigs have a litter of 10 or 12. So in that sense, if that's the goal of life, then we should have big statues of pigs because they're so successful if it's all about procreation, right? But no, that's not what the human form of life is for. The human form of life is meant for self-realization, for understanding our lost relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And people don't know this, right? So they're wasting their time looking for happiness in so many different ways. Yeah. So we can help them by putting them on the right path, by giving them the holy name, giving them some prasadam, giving them one of Srila Prabhupada's books. And this would be the greatest humanitarian service, because in so-called humanitarian service, they may give somebody some material thing, but that will not satisfy them. If they're hungry, they can give them food, they'll become hungry again. But if we give them spiritual knowledge, if we show them how they can be happy with spiritual activities, then they can finish off the birth, death, old age, and disease, the real problems that are in this life. And that is the highest humanitarian activity. They say Manava Seva is Madhava Seva, but it's not like that, right? You can, so-called service to man is not really service to man. If I try to serve the body, then that person's not really benefited. And I remember going out on Harinam in New York City. We used to do street plays. So the devotees would be chanting, and then actor devotees would come dressed in regular clothes. A lady, a couple of gents were standing there. And then the lady starts screaming, "My husband, he's drowning, my husband." So all the people walking on the street, they look, what's going on? Because this lady is screaming. And she's pointing. And then there's one devotee actor who's on the ground, like struggling like he's drowning in the water. And then another devotee comes over and says, "Don't worry, I'll save him." So he acts like he's jumping in the water and he's swimming out to the guy who's drowning. And then he's wrestling with the guy to, and he gets his jacket off. And then he comes back and he says, "I saved him." And the lady screams, "Oh, that's not my husband, that's his coat." This is on Harinam Sankirtan, right? Street plays. It's very effective. Then one devotee comes with dhoti, tilak, kurta, and he gives the purport. He explains to the crowd now what is if you just try to save the coat of the drowning man, it's like the person that's in this material world, if you give them something for the body, it's not really going to benefit them. But you have to save the person, and that's the soul within inside the body. So street plays are very effective in Harinam Sankirtan. It can really enlighten the crowd, and it's a good platform for preaching also. I remember the devotees in New York, they were especially good at it. They were called the Vaikuntha Players. And they had so many plays. The Boatman and the Scholar, put in your money in the wrong bank account. Nice place they have. So the art, Krishna consciousness is all about art. It's culture. It's culture. You see these paintings, devotees painted, art. It's the finer sentiments of a human being are connected with art. And that art is connected with Krishna. As previously all arts were connected with the Supreme Lord. You know, the people lived in grass huts, but they made for the Lord beautiful temples, opulent temples. So art was connected with the Lord, whether it was architecture, painting, sculpture, song, dance, everything was connected with the Supreme Lord. Nowadays, nothing is connected with the Supreme Lord. All of it is lost. The real art is lost. So Srila Prabhupada's effort was to make a cultural movement to reestablish the lost arts of serving to Krishna. And if you go to villages, still some of the traditional arts of serving the Lord are there. And so we should use this short human form of life to develop the culture of Krishna consciousness and help people enter into that culture so that their lives can be perfect. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Yes.
Krishna Prabhuji, you can tell something more about Prabhupada's visit to Hyderabad and your experience also here.
Well, you know, I was just with Prabhupada on that one occasion in Hyderabad, but I do remember we went to the house of G. Pulareddy, and we took lunch at his house one day. And there was lots of rasgullas. And Srila Prabhupada also came there to have his lunch. And he came, I remember specifically because he came in a 1959 Chevrolet convertible. And I thought, how did this 1959 Chevrolet convertible ever come here to this city in Hyderabad? You know, couldn't figure it out. But when I came back, many years, that was in 1975, but I came back to Hyderabad in the 80s to distribute books and to also distribute sets of books in the libraries. And I saw, I don't know exactly where, but you know, Hyderabad's changed so much since those days. Those times it was like a smaller city. But there was one specific place where all these old cars were parked, and sure enough, there was still that 1959 Chevrolet convertible was there, and they were renting it out, you know, for marriages and things like that. So that was one thing that struck me. Seeing the old car from America. But later on, Srila Prabhupada came on Janmashtami 1976, I believe. He opened the Radha Madan Mohan Temple, and the installation was done by Sampat Bhattacharya, the Brahmins from Bangalore. He brought the Brahmins from Bangalore. And Yashodanandan was here, and Guru Kripa. So Srila Prabhupada, that Sampat Bhattacharya, he really liked Srila Prabhupada very much. So, but he met Prabhupada here in this, at the opening of the Hyderabad temple. And later on, when Prabhupada was very sick at the end in 1977. He came from, by that time after, there was the Krishna Balaram temple was open, and in the Krishna Balaram temple, they had Prabhupada had installed a murti of himself and a murti of his spiritual master on the altar. So Prabhupada was very sick, and this Sampat Bhattacharya came to tell Srila Prabhupada something. He said that, you see, because your murti is on the altar and you're still with us physically present, many people are transferring their sinful reactions to you, and that's why you're getting sick. He wanted to give that because Prabhupada was very sick at that time. And Prabhupada said to that Sampat Bhattacharya, he said, you don't understand. That's why I have come here. So then that Sampat Bhattacharya, he became very amazed, and he circumambulated Prabhupada 3 times, and he left. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any other questions?
Can you tell how you came to Krishna Consciousness?
How did you come to Krishna Consciousness? How did you come to Krishna Consciousness?
The preaching in the college preaching.
I did the same thing. I met some devotees at the college I was attending, and they preached to me. But I had a friend that became a devotee. And that friend of mine moved into the temple. And he told me that, you see, he was renting a room down the street from the temple. And he moved in. And he said, I paid the rent, so if you want, you can stay there, but I'm moving in the temple. So I said, okay. And I moved in to that rented place, and he moved into the temple. And not long after, just a short time after that, the devotees said, we're going to New Vrindavan for Janmashtami. Do you want to come? And I didn't know what Janmashtami was, nor did I know where New Vrindavan was. But I said, yeah, sure, let's go. So the devotees from St. Louis drove to New Vrindavan. It's about 600 miles. And I did a lot of the driving. But we got to New Vrindavan, and devotees were there. And the Vaikuntha players had come from New York. They were expecting Srila Prabhupada to come. So there was about 1,000 devotees there. Well, it seemed like 1,000, a lot of devotees. And they had a very big festival, and they were doing plays, the advent of Lord Krishna. And I remember the sannyasis did a mock debate between a Mayavadi and a Vaishnava. They did a debate. And the Mayavadi was Kirtanananda, and the Vaishnava was Vishnu Jan Swami. So about 1 minute into the debate, the Mayavadi said, I surrender, and he fell at the feet of Vishnu Jan Maharaj. So the debate was over. But that Janmashtami night, I mean, nowadays we don't eat grains on Janmashtami, but in those days they did. There was gulab jamun, sweet rice, 2 or 3 different kinds of rice, sabji. Big feast, very big feast. So the one devotee from New Vrindavan, was going around collecting donations. And there were so many young people, hippies, so many hippies. And next to me, one hippie was sitting there, and that person said, give a donation. And the hippie said, well, I don't have any money. So the devotee said, well, give your watch. And that hippie was thinking whether to give or not to give. And before I knew it, the watch was off his hand and in the basket. And I thought, well, That's pretty far out. So, devotees were ready to do anything and everything for Krishna, whatever it was. And so when I got back to St. Louis with the devotees, then I never left. I just stayed in the temple. That was maybe, that was 50 years ago this Janmashtami, 1973. Now it's 23, right? 50 years ago. Yeah. Just went like that. I don't know how the time passed. Any other questions?
Krishna Prabhuji. So, what is the thing attracted by from Prabhupada? So you get any inspiration from Prabhupada, like you have attracted?
What was that?
So what is the thing you get like attracted
What did I get attracted?
from Prabhupada?
Well, I think the main thing is Srila Prabhupada's books. And I can remember that I had a subscription to Back to Godhead magazine and was reading every month Back to Godhead, and gradually, you know, I could understand the philosophy a little bit. But I had a Bhagavad Gita, but I couldn't really understand it very much. You know, there was one verse from the second chapter, it says, what was daytime for the non-devotees is, you know, night for the introspective stage. And I thought, well, what does that mean? You know, I couldn't understand it so much. But Srila Prabhupada was giving so many interesting things. And I think the main thing he was giving was Krishna Prasadam. Because in those days, hardly anyone was a vegetarian. But even though I was living outside, I didn't really know much about Krishna consciousness. I was still trying to be a vegetarian. And then when we were introduced to prasadam, then where would you get prasadam? You know, in those days. So that was the big attraction. Prasadam, the holy name, philosophy, and service to Krishna. The mood was to save the fallen souls. Give them a book, give them some prasadam, give them the holy name. So we would go out as a new bhakta, we would clean the temple. The whole temple was cleaned by all the devotees by 9:30. Class was over at 9:30, whole temple was clean, prasadam. After prasadam, 10 o'clock, we were out on the streets doing Harinam Sankirtan. We chant till 12:30, almost 1 o'clock, then come back and have lunch. And after lunch, we'd go out again door to door and sell magazines, door to door. And then come back for the evening artik. After the evening artik, there was Bhagavad Gita class. And after the Bhagavad Gita class, there was milk prasadam. And then take rest. So the time went by so fast, you know. Years later, I heard that there was the end of the Vietnam War. It was in 1975. But I never heard about that because I was living in the temple. And we didn't read newspapers. The Vietnam War ended and we didn't even have any idea that it ended, you know. We were busy serving Krishna. 15 years later, I heard that the Vietnam War, and I'm thinking, how come I never heard of that in 1975? And I realized because I was so busy just being a new devotee in the St. Louis temple. So that's the kind of absorption that we need. And then the material world seems very insignificant then, if we're absorbed in full devotional service. We're in our own world. We're in the spiritual world. We're not in the material world. And all the anxieties that come along with it. Any other questions? Okay, should we chant the kirtan here? See if I can see it. Yasomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Gana Jasomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Gana Gopi Parana Jana Madhana Manohara Kaliya Damana Vidana Amala Harinam Amya Vilasa Amala Harinam Amya Vilasa Vibhina Purandara Nahavina Nagabara Vamshivada Surasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nagavara Vamshivada Surasa Brajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Brajajana Brajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Nanda Godhana Ragovala Nanda Godhana Ragovala Inda Taska Inda Vanita Taska Sundananda Gopala Sundananda Gopala Jamuna Tata Gopivasana Rasa Sika Kripa Jamuna Tachara Gopivasana Rasa Sika Kripa Shri Radha Vrindavan Attapur Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavan Attapur Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskada. Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskada. Shri Radha Vrindavan Attapur. Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavan Attapur. Bhakti Vinodashraya. Bhakti Vinodashraya. Jasumati Nandana Brajabalo Nagara Gokulam Janana. Jasumati Nandana Brajabalo Nagara Gokulam Janana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Nittai Gaur Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nittai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.